just one big story, isn't it?
Welcome to the Story Connection. I'm your host, Donna Wilberg. Well, our guest today wears many hats, but today she's going to be talking to us about the trials and tribulations of writing. We would like to welcome author Sherry Joyce.
Nice to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. But before we get into your book, the Dorado Deception, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I didn't always start out writing. And when I did, I wasn't conscious of the fact that I enjoyed it. I started it when I was 10 and managed to convince my little cousin who lived next door that we ought to do a newspaper for the entire neighborhood. How we would publish that and why anybody would care to read it at that age, who knows. And I really didn't get serious about writing until I ended up in high tech.
Okay, so you worked in high tech as?
I started out in high tech as a human resources manager, and I was specifically hired at one point to do the company newsletters, where I had an opportunity to interview department heads, be up to date on all the new products that were coming out, and then in those days put the entire thing together, because there was just a giant mimeograph and I had a large office and you had to cut and paste everything together and turn it into a newsletter.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It was ambitious.
But what a great learning experience, kind of prepared you for everything you're doing now. So can you give us a short synopsis about your book? I love the title.
The Dorado Deception. It's a story really about four people. It has to do with a rather vulnerable young woman in San Francisco who does not see a divorce coming. She's highly successful in her career, and her ex-husband, by the time they're divorced, really wants her to stay in the Bay Area, and she's thinking, I'm going to keep running into him. He has another girlfriend. I really need to move on. She decided to leave the country. She got a huge payout from a severance package in her job and decided to go to France and buy a bed and breakfast and just start over.
Wow. That's ambitious. That sounds like something you would do.
It would be. So it has to do with that character. Her name is Charisse Eden. And it also has to do with, there's actually four main characters. The antagonist is really somebody that you kind of know at the very beginning of the book is probably the one who committed the murder. But you're not 100% sure until a very cunning and exceptionally good-looking guest shows up at the bed and breakfast.
Oh, I love it. So this is romantic suspense.
It's romantic suspense.
Okay.
His name is Francois Delacroix.
Ooh.
And he kind of lures her into a deception that she does not recognize because she's particularly vulnerable. And one of the things I liked writing about this book was to show what can happen when you make decisions at a bad time in your life.
Wow, isn't that the truth? Absolutely. Well, they say everyone has a book inside of them. So was this a book that you had been kind of thinking about writing as you were running off the mimeographs, or is this an idea that came later on?
Much, much later.
Okay.
We went to the Dorado to celebrate a big O birthday, and I won't say which O it is, so that maybe it will come off younger than I really am. But we decided if we could get there, we invited all family and friends and said, if you can, get there, you have a free place to stay. And we had found this 30,000 square foot castle online at something called chateau.com at that time. And everybody we invited came, and the owner of the 30,000 square foot castle literally handed us the keys. And she said, I will be visiting my children in Bordeaux and in Spain, and I'll be back in a week. And she pointed us to the wine cellar and said, have a great time.
Oh my goodness.
So we're thinking we're going to have a fabulous, wonderful time, which we did. We enjoyed the wine, we enjoyed the scenery, the tours that we did during the day, until the late afternoon where I was writing out postcards about 3 o'clock. The skies were gray, but it wasn't thundering or anything like that. And I was in the fourth tower of the castle, and I was writing out postcards, and all the windows around me were open. And all at once, it sounded literally like the castle had been bombed.
Oh my goodness.
I got a big jolt from the lightning charge, but I didn't know at that time that it was lightning, and went tearing down 4 flights of stairs, dodging the beams, got down to the bottom floor, and I thought something had blown up, and I thought we were going to have to pay for the whole castle. So it was really pretty terrifying. And I found out that because we were so high on a promontory, that the lightning, travels sideways sometimes across the sky, and it hit the lightning rod right above the tower that I was in. So I got, okay, that was pretty scary. We didn't, have to pay for the castle. And then that night, when my husband and I went to bed, kind of laying there, it's kind of quiet. All of a sudden you start hearing the thunder. And then you start hearing the lightning, and it's crackling, and it's really getting loud, and it's coming up the Dorado River. And I am terrified that it's going to hit that lightning rod again, because it's right above our bedroom. And so my toes are like this, and I can't sleep. And I thought, this is the perfect setting for a murder mystery. And so I started writing the characters because I was so scared. I couldn't go to sleep. And then, when we got home, it was kind of like, okay, well, that was kind of fun and interesting. And I thought I would just put that aside, but the characters wouldn't let go. And, pretty soon it was like, okay, there's a story here, and these people want to talk. So, after setting it aside for a while, in about 2007 or 8 or so, I actually sat down and thought, well, why don't I try writing the story and see what happens. I don't know if I can write a book. I'd wanted to do that, but I had all these other careers that got in the way first. And when I sat down to do the first draft, it took me about 2.5 weeks. I couldn't stop.
Wow. It was meant to happen.
It was meant to happen.
It's just totally meant to happen. And how long from that point did it take to get it published?
Well, my husband retired in 2009. I was up here in El Dorado Hills already for about 6 months. And in fact, I had pretty much forgotten about the manuscript because I started writing it when our house was still on the market in the Bay Area. And I thought, well, I'm unpacking boxes, and I come across this manuscript and I go, oh yeah, I actually sort of thought I could write a book, and I started reading it and I go, I still like this. I put all this effort into it. And then I wasn't sure what to do about it, and then I accidentally met my editor.
Okay, accidentally.
I fell at her feet.
Okay.
We were at a party, friends of ours in the neighborhood, and I was carrying a full platter of food, and I was going to try to come up the patio steps, which usually are very close to the house, but this was a very large patio. I couldn't see across my platter, and I literally just tripped, toe first, flat out, and I fell in front of this lovely woman who, helped me get up. My knees were not bloody. Turned out that she spoke fluent French. She was a film editor. She lived in the area. She and I got along like instantly, and I started telling her about my book, and she said, I'd be happy to work with you.
Oh, what a wonderful story, Sherry. That's wonderful. So she kind of took the reins and got it all prepared for you, and...
Well, it needed a lot of work. I mean, it was a rough manuscript. There were the early days when you think you have something ready to go and you send it off to a publishing house, and you think it's going to be made into a movie, and you send pictures of the castle and all the characters that will play all the different parts in the movie. And it takes a while before you get a really nice reject letter. But I decided I would probably self-publish, and then my editor, who's also the film producer, Lisa Dane of Dane and Associates, worked with me to really refine that manuscript, to put it into a format that was marketable for the genre. And she felt, and I did too, I needed to add more to it, so I added another 35,000 words to it. Wow,
that's not an easy thing to do, especially when you've got it set in your head, that you've already got your story together.
Right.
So what was that experience like for you?
I did a lot of backward reading because I didn't plan on becoming a novelist or an author when I was young. So I bought a lot of books and figured out what I needed to do is add more dialogue, add more conflict, and come up with a couple more characters that needed to be in the book.
What an experience. And you did that, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. So now you've got a published novel. Are you working on something else?
I'm working on the next one in between all the things that I now do. The next one is going to be called Dangerous Duplicity, and it'll be another romantic suspense. The protagonist will probably be somebody that is actually based in New York but is taking a vacation in the south of France, but it won't be in the Dorado. It'll probably be in Saint-Paul-de-Vence.
So do you plan on visiting the south of France to kind of collect your research?
Been there already.
Oh, you've been? Okay. Right.
Been there, ready, and that's what sparked the idea in my head, because I was looking at a painting that we bought from St. Paul de Vence when we were there on a trip, and I suddenly knew where the next setting was going to be.
Don't you love the way all the pieces kind of fall together?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and sometimes you get an inspiration when you least expect it, and then you're not sure if that idea is going to work out, and you may have to hold on to it for a long time until all the different pieces start to gel. I try to do a little writing when I can, but I'm so involved with so many other projects. Writing the second book has been much harder than it was writing the first.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about some of the other things you're doing, because you've started a whole new career. You want to talk about that?
Well, the career that I was a vice president of human resources for almost 35 years. I retired from high tech, or tried to retire, in 2000. And that night when I got home, there was a voicemail on my answering machine, and it said, now that you're not working, would you please help my wife design and help us redesign our home in Atherton? And I knew who this person was. It was an executive that worked across the hall at another company. And I thought, he just probably wants me to take her shopping because she's from Dallas and probably doesn't know where to go for different materials. So I met with him in his office. I met with her. That wasn't the case at all. They had a contractor and a lot of subs, but a designer who was one of those who kind of came in and was just going to do whatever he wanted. And she didn't like the color of the marble that was arriving, and she was in tears. And I said, let me just do a business plan for you. I'd always done a lot of construction and remodeling and design on the side, but was not about to give up a lucrative HR job to go play with fabrics and furniture. So I said, let me just do a business plan, and I'll tell you how I would approach this job. They wanted me to remodel 5 bathrooms, pick all the colors for the walls, replace the carpeting, help them with their furniture arrangement. And I thought, well, I'll just do this. I'll bring design boards. Nobody told me how to do them. I just did them. Presented to him 2 days later, and he turned around in his office and he fired the designer while I sat there online. And literally the next day I had a new job. I never got my car cleaned out. And I was like turning around, going the opposite direction in the Bay Area, working on this house. And within a week, it was like I was having so much fun. I don't know why I enjoyed being in high tech for so many years. This is a ball. I can't believe somebody's paying me to do this. But then, I thought, do I know as much as I think I do? And maybe I really ought to go back to school and see if I can learn what someone in an interior design program would need to learn. So I enrolled at Kenyatta College. Again, back to college. And I took the first course, I think it was called Introduction to Interior Design. At the end of the semester, I think I won Best Interior Designer. And there were, people my age in the class, which I wasn't expecting. So I managed to go to school in between that project and at night, and I did that for 6.5 years until I graduated. And then never stopped doing design work. I thought when that house was done, I would never get another thing to do. Except while I was even in school, the American Society for Interior Designers had a show house in 2003. And they asked me to work on a particular room. And usually student designers at that time would always be given a bathroom or a closet. And I went, no, could we have a real room? Could I have one across from the master bedroom? So I really lobbied for that and was able to get that. And I did it with 2 other designers, and it was called Poetic Haven. It was so successful that it ended up in Gentry magazine. It ended up in California Home and Remodeling. People went through the room, and one woman said she went through 3 times before she called me because she loved the room so much. She wanted to know who I was, and she became a fantastic client in Atherton, and that sort of launched my career. So suddenly, overnight, I was no longer in high tech, but I wasn't writing a book either. Now I'm an interior designer. I had nothing on my desk but a notepad, a Rolodex, and I go, okay, we'll see where we go from here. So that was way back in 2000.
What a journey. So things have just been falling into place since then?
They tend to fall into place, I think, but you make a lot of things happen. When I moved up to El Dorado Hills, I didn't tell anybody for a couple of years that I was an interior designer, because I thought, I'm just going to do all these other things that I never got around to doing, like write books, write more books. And Eventually, whether I was golfing or however we met people, people found out I did interior design, and then a custom builder found me, and he said, would you work with me? So he says, I'm not really good with colors, and if you'd work with my clients and help them with their hardscaping, help them with the exterior colors, their window choices, their flooring, travertine, maybe their granite countertops, their wall colors. And so this became an adjunct, which was great because I could do it kind of part-time and still golf and still write, because after the book was launched, the local publisher of Behind the Gates magazine came to my book launch, and she said, well, in your free time, would you write for our magazine? I went,
free time.
Free time, and I said, well, I'm going on a trip for a month. We're going to go on a road trip. My husband and I were celebrating then our 51st wedding anniversary. And we took a month off, and I thought, well, when I got back, she probably will forget all about it. Well, she didn't. So, that became pretty much another part-time job, because I write for the feature magazine, every month.
So do you love everything you do? Is there something like that you'd like to scale back and kind of do more of something else?
I apparently didn't get the memo on not doing so much. I mean, I'm working on that, but I'd love to do both. And I think there are people that they want to focus on just one thing, but I can't. I'm a Gemini, and I can't really give up design, because that's a love. It's a passion. I was an artist. I was given an art scholarship when I left high school and never used it. So I've always painted. I've sold paintings. It's like I can't give up the design now, but I don't want to do it full time anymore. I want to also focus at least 50% on writing, which I do. But then this year I had a little bit of guilt and thought, well, maybe I should start giving back. So I volunteered for the Salute to Valor committee at our country club, which sounds kind of lofty, but it really is all about veterans and giving back to veterans. And that's something that's very close to my heart, since my dad spent the first 2 years of my baby life in Japan in the war. So I got involved with that, and then this year I was approached by the president of the Dorado Arts Council and asked me if I would be a board member. And I'm thinking, I can do one more thing during the daytime. And he said, our meetings are at night, and it's just once a month. So I said, okay.
Wow.
So there's a few balls up in the air.
I'm exhausted.
Some days I am.
That's incredible. And I love that, all these things I think are leading to something, because the creativity with the design, interior design, it's got to kind of enhance your writing abilities, because you're always creating, and the different colors and landscapings and stuff have got to lend to your writing.
Well, the thing about, and people have said that about the book, I didn't realize this till I went to interior design school. I thought, designers were just good with colors and space planning. I didn't realize that we have a gift, and that there's only 5% of us that can actually visually see everything in our head. I can walk into a new home that's empty and see it already done. I see all the furniture, and when I write, I see everything like a full video running. So I see all the walls, I see all the furniture, I see all the people, I see all the colors, I see all the birds. Yes, it does run like that. And so I thought everybody could do that, but when you sit down with a new client and you say, this is kind of what this is going to look like, they have no idea. They can't see what you see.
Yeah.
So you have to draw it or sketch it or do, a CAD program or something where they can actually see what you mean.
Well, you're doing it all. And I think that's so commendable. Plus volunteering.
I didn't have the time to volunteer when I was working. When you're working 12, 14-hour day job, it's like, volunteer, not going to happen. Plus, my parents lived with us for 15 years. So, between caring for them and being a wife and then we had 3 dogs, I really didn't have the time to volunteer. And now that I'm getting older, it's like, I've got to do this, because I don't want to leave this planet without having given back.
Yeah. Are you real organized? You seem like you would have to
in
be.
a kind of a chaotic way. I'm organized around the house. I know where everything is in my office. One half of my office is book related. The other half of the office is all design related. I can have piles of things, but I know exactly where everything is.
So do you outline when you work on your books?
I'll do a rough kind of a plot. So I'll start, and then I kind of work all the way through, so I know, or before I even start, where the ending is going to be. But I'm not 100% locked into that, because the characters will often decide, oh no, I don't want to do that. And something else will come up, as you know. And so you go, okay, that sounds like a much better idea. Actually, I think I'll go with that. I don't often know where I'm going to be going until I start writing.
Do you think you'll ever develop a character who's a who's an interior designer?
I thought about that, but I just thought, there aren't so many show houses anymore. There are more around the country, but there are not as many up here. Street of Dreams happened in El Dorado Hills a long time ago. The ASID hasn't done a show house in the Bay Area forever. They're still doing them in South Carolina and in other locations. So, having a dead body show up somewhere in a very exclusive design house didn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I didn't want to have any other designers being the murderers. So it was something I decided I would just leave alone.
What about travel? You seem to like to incorporate your travel into your stories. Is there any particular place that you've got in mind that you would like to do next?
My editor will tell you that I have the opposite problem of most people. Like someone once said, "Do you have writer's block?" And I go, "Actually, I have the other problem. I have so many stories I want to tell, I can't get them all out fast enough." So I'll send her sometimes a plot outline, and she'll go, "We haven't even finished this other book yet," and she just is like, "Okay, just focus on one thing." But I have a heritage of being Hungarian, and I recently found out I'm also part Austrian, which I thought was pretty funny to find that out at this age, that I didn't know that. And I really wanted to go back to Budapest because that's where my grandparents were born. And we were there in 1972, but there was a small uprising going on, and there were armed guards in the ditches, and we were given, I think, 24 hours that we had to get through the country. We were driving. So there went the opportunity to see anything about where my grandparents lived and how they grew up. Of course, a lot of that's now changed because the Austro-Hungarian Empire is gone. Czechoslovakia is all different and is broken up into lots of other smaller countries. So I'd like to actually go back, and I have another author friend who now lives in Budapest, so maybe we'll take one of those river cruises, and I'll do some research because I have a really great story, I think, in my head that I want to tell.
That sounds wonderful. Well, Sherry, it's time to give our information, so why don't you tell the audience where they can contact you?
Okay, you can go on my website at sherryjoyce.com. That's for the book, the Dorado Deception. Now I can't even say my own book. And if it's for interior design, it's just sherryjoycedesigns.com.
Wonderful. Well, we have some information about the Story Connection as well we're going to share with the audience.
Okay.
Fourth Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our companion show, Paranormal Connection, airs the first and third Thursdays of each month. Each episode repeats the following Friday at 1:30 p.m. and Saturday at 5:30 a.m. Watch these programs online at the same airtimes by going to accesssacramento.org and clicking Watch 17. In the Sacramento region, you can see us on Comcast Channel 17 and on AT&T Channel 99. You can find previously aired shows on the Story Connection YouTube channel. For information on upcoming shows and previous Story Connection guests, go to storyconnectiontv.blogspot.com. You can contact us at storyconnectiontv@gmail.com, and don't forget, find us on Facebook, become a friend, and become a fan.
Wonderful. Well, we've just got a couple minutes left. Do you have any advice out there for people who are trying to write a book or wanting to start a new career?
I think you can continue to reinvent yourself, and the opportunities that may come up, don't overlook them. Knock on some doors, but don't be fearful. I think it's great to still be able to get up in the morning and be really excited about what you're doing. And if you think, okay, I've done that and that's all there is, that's not even remotely close to being true. You can do anything you want to do. If you just, you have to spend the time learning a new craft, but you can reinvent yourself over and over again, and life becomes just super fun.
Oh, it does sound like you're having a good time.
I am.
Does volunteering kind of open up doors for you as well?
It does. Actually, with the El Dorado Arts Council, the president, Dan Catone, had asked me if I would do some pro bono work for them. When they needed some design help, they'd moved into a new building in Placerville called the Fossil House. And it was very historic, and they wanted to put in a kitchen and figure out how to hang the art, and also to work out some office spaces for the executive director and the staff. And so I did that for them as a volunteer project. See, and I think that led to his asking me to be on the board.
Okay, that works. Well, speaking of volunteers, I have to thank the volunteers that come and do the show for us, for everybody out there, because without them, we certainly wouldn't have this opportunity to present people like Sherry Joyce to you. So I would like to thank my crew that came out today, Laura and Ted and Laureen and Rick and David and Cassandra. They don't have to do this, but they do it. They do it for not only to meet people, wonderful people like Sherry, but also to present this information to all of you. So I am really grateful to have, the volunteers that I have. So with that, we're going to say good night. I think we've covered everything.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
All right, everybody. Think about the story you want to tell, and good night.